right, 580 Sports Talk on a Thursday. A jam-packed 3 hours of 580 Sports Talk coming your way this afternoon and evening on the sports voice of Kansas. 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and streaming in Technicolor.
I don't know if
Vivid
this is. I don't know if
Technicolor.
Technicolor's still around these days.
Vivid.
Are they still in the game?
I have no idea. I have no idea if this Technicolor's still in the league or not. But you can watch us on video on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube and on Facebook at WIBW News. I am Dan Lucero. That is Brendan Dworzinski. Spencer Dupuis will be along in a bit. We'll have a rotating cast of characters on today's program. We're glad you're with us to start this day on 580 Sports Talk. We have got so much to talk about.
Technicolor is still in the game, by the way.
Oh, shut up.
Technicolor is a process. It is also the name of a company that does all of the processes that lead to Technicolor.
Okay.
Been around since 1914. That's older than sliced bread.
Is that right?
That's right. 1920, I believe, was sliced bread.
Is that when we started slicing bread?
I believe so.
Before then, we were just like putting a whole loaf.
Like when I go to the store and eat a baguette for a snack.
Yeah, we're just laying out lunch meat on top of a loaf of bread. And just eating it
1928.
bit by bit.
That's when we started slicing bread. 1928.
Yeah, dude.
Which honestly makes that phrase even more ridiculous. Like, people were saying that in the 40s. Like, well, sliced bread ain't that old then.
Yeah, but they were hype on it because it was new.
Greatest thing in the last 15 years doesn't really do a whole lot.
It was still new in the game. It's like us. I mean, 4K is sick. Yeah, it's been around about a decade, but yeah, we still like it.
I suppose.
Sliced bread. I mean, they did. Like,
but if I was to say this is the greatest thing since 4K, oh, that's the greatest thing since like 2016. All right.
So yeah, that's why we have to go back as far as sliced bread.
Yeah.
Man, it's a good thing they came up with it in 28 because 29 it became pretty important to ration your food.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, that's why it was.
You went from a loaf to a slice real quick.
That's why people were so excited about it. It was right on time. Whoever sliced that bread for the first time. And they had no idea how prescient they were being. Anyhow,
shout out to the Earl of Sandwich.
We are going to talk sports on today's episode of 580 Sports Talk. That I can promise you. That was just 580 bread talk. We'll maybe get back to that, maybe not.
580 bread talk is also when I get to my entrepreneurial ideas.
Yeah.
Different kind of bread.
That was our spinoff based loosely upon Shark Tank that the Suits told us we could not do.
Shockingly, Dave Ramsey did not pick up that spinoff.
No. He has our number. He has our information if he ever changes his mind. Today on the show, Super Bowl 59 is coming up 2 Sundays from today, February 9th, in New Orleans, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. It has been difficult to this point, particularly down the stretch since everybody got healthy, or everybody who was going to be healthy has gotten healthy for the Chiefs, to predict who was going to be the most impactful pass catcher in a game for the Chiefs. So we'll take a crack at guessing who that might be for the Super Bowl, which Chiefs pass catcher might have the best matchup or the best opportunity to get loose against the Philadelphia Eagles defense. We'll also talk about an Eagles pass catcher who might have an opportunity to have a big impact, or are we overstating something that was a problem for the Chiefs, a big problem early on in the season that has not been as big a problem in recent games for the Kansas City defense, particularly not in the AFC Championship game. We'll discuss that going forward as well. And of course, because this is a Thursday, one of our great guests on the program today is the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, Mitch Holthus. He will join us in the 5 o'clock hour today, about 5:25. Again, a courtesy of Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Mitch Holthus will join us. We will get his thoughts on the Chiefs AFC Championship game victory and some early thoughts on Super Bowl 59 before he heads off to New Orleans next week. New Orleans or New Orleans? What do you do?
New Orleans. Orlinz.
Yeah, I usually pronounce it New Orleans. I was watching, as I am wont to do, old broadcast intros of NFL games to listen to the theme songs, and caught an old intro. It was a Saints-Dolphins game on NBC in like 1992. And Charlie Jones was on the call,
Mm-hmm.
former voice of the Rockies, for whatever that's worth. Interesting to only me. But Charlie Jones was the play-by-play guy, and he said, we are in New Orleans at the Superdome, and called them the New Orleans Saints. And that just doesn't...
No, bad, don't like.
It's a little too prim and proper for me.
Yeah, but not even, because that's not how you say it in French either. It's Orléans. So, that's just wrong all over the place.
They also pronounce it that way in the Simpsons episode where they do the musical version of A Streetcar Named Desire, and the opening song is about New Orleans, tacky, overpriced souvenir stores. If you want to go to hell, you should take a trip to the Sodom and Gomorrah of the Mississippi. That did not make the people of New Orleans happy.
I'm shocked by that.
Yeah, they weren't real thrilled with Matt Groening referring to their city as, among other things, putrid, brackish, maggoty, and foul.
All I know is that in his version of the city of New Orleans, that's how it's said by Willie Nelson, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Willie Nelson does something that's good enough for me too. So we'll go with New Orleans moving forward. Anyhow, we're going to talk some Chiefs. We're going to talk to Mitch Holthus. We're going to talk some college hoops on the program today. K-State, winning streak. It's a winning streak. It counts. 2 in a row. They put the beats on Oklahoma State at Bramlage Coliseum. That is 2 consecutive games where Kansas State has come sprinting out of the first half locker room, built a big lead, maintained the big lead in the second half, and cruised to a victory. And it may be too late for it to mean anything as far as, are they going to show up on anybody's bubble watch? Are they going to make the tournament? All of that. It may be too little too late for that. But it is not too little too late for this group of players, one, trying to maximize the opportunities they have to play. And number 2, I think this stretch of play that we have seen, even including the losses to Kansas and Baylor on the road that preceded these last 2 games, I think it shows that Jerome Tang can, in fact, do the job. And I'll explain what I mean a little bit later on. We will talk some K-State hoops, and then we will talk Big 12 basketball at large with the outstanding C.J. Moore, the best college basketball feature writer in America from The Athletic. He will join us at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for the Big 12 basketball breakdown. We also have the local sports spotlight coming up in a little bit this hour. Bottom of this hour, Rick Peterson of TopSports.news will join us. He is at the Capital City Classic at Topeka West High School, night number 1 of that 3-night girls basketball tournament. We will have coverage of night number 2 of the event. Tomorrow is our 580 Preps game of the week on 580 WIBW. Shawnee Heights, Highland Park, Topeka West, and Washburn Rural all participating in the Capital City Classic. Pistols thoughts on that. City swimming is coming up, some wrestling, and Washburn basketball as well, whatever we can find time to get into with Pistol coming up at the bottom of this hour.
I also would like to really quickly, because I will be leaving at the end of this hour. I've got
some
Washburn basketball to call tonight.
Speaking of Washburn basketball.
Yep, we've got a doozy of a doubleheader coming your way. It'll be over on Country 106.9 KTPK tonight. 5:30, the Washburn women take on Fort Hays State, number 8 team in the country, Fort Hays State. And then at 7:30, your undefeated Washburn men, 19-0, number 1 in the nation, will take on Fort Hays State. Dan, you called the first meeting between these squads earlier this year.
I did.
Washburn's men with a win, best start in program history. 19-0 ties it, 20 wins in a row would set the new program record. Should be a good one. Hays is receiving votes in the top 25. That's a good team. They are second in the MIAA standings as well, so it is a massive game. We'll have all that action coming up, again, on Country 106.9 tonight. Pre-game starts at 5:15, so I'm not going to tell you not to listen to the end of Sports Talk, but if you find yourself not able to listen to the end of Sports Talk and Mitch and Spencer and Dan, you can find your way over to Country 106.9 and listen to Washburn. But since I will be gone after the end of this hour to get ready for the game, I will not be joining us for headlines. Massive news on the diamond that Charlie Sheen is a Kansas City Royal.
You know, this broke moments before we went off the air yesterday, so I got to it in my final word.
Okay, I was wondering, because I saw it right before I went on the air with the Washburn Coaches Show, and I thought, oh man, this is either the best or worst timing for Dan and Spencer, because if you don't want to make a whole segment out of the final 5 minutes of a show.
No, you don't. Not typically.
So I wondered if you'd get to it today. And I'm mad I'm not going to get to talk about Charlie Sheen being a Royal.
Wild thing, Carlos Estevez See,
I was heartbroken to find out there is a different Carlos Estevez.
I think it is the pronunciation is different too. I believe for Charlie Sheen, the birth name is Carlos Estevez.
Yeah.
But the accent mark in the new Royals reliever's name puts the emphasis on a different syllable. So it is Estevez with the newest member of the Kansas City Royals bullpen.
People forget Charlie Sheen was once committed to play baseball at KU.
People do forget that.
Yeah.
He was throwing in the mid 80s in Major League. They didn't have to fake the funk too much with that Ricky Vaughn heater. He could really bring it.
Yeah. And then they told him, hey, you need to get your grades up. And he said, do you know who I am? And went to Hollywood. So there you go.
Yeah, that is a fun little nugget that his nickname, Carlos Estevez, his nickname is Wild Thing because he's the same name as the actor who played Wild Thing. Anyway, yeah, we'll get to that. We got headlines coming up at the 5 o'clock hour. We have got the January semifinals on What Is Wrong With You. 4 monthly or weekly winners facing off to be the January monthly champion. And I got to tell you, the other 11 months of this year got a tough act to follow because we got 4 really good stories. I think any of these 4 could win a month. And we will have those competing in the January semifinals. Also a little bit of either or over under this hour as well. Plus, your interaction with the show. We want to hear from you today. The text line, 785-272-9429. You can interact with the pros. That's us in the sense that we do this for a living as a job. In that sense, we are professionals. In other senses, we'll leave that to the judgment of others. But you can text the show, 785-272-9429. You can also interact if you are watching on the YouTube stream today. 580 Sports Talk is the YouTube channel. Jump on into the live chat with us and with your fellow listeners, and you can interact with the show and talk to us throughout the program today. 580 Sports Talk is the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not. We're looking to get to 800 subscribers. When we do, Brendan and I are going to arm wrestle on camera. So that should be incitement to subscribe if you have not yet. Let's talk Super Bowl 59, Chiefs-Eagles, coming up February 9th. Who do you think stands to be the most targeted and most productive receiver in this upcoming Super Bowl? And, of course, in the wild card round, or the divisional round, rather, the first playoff game for the Chiefs, Travis Kelce stole the show. Playoff Trav was immense in the 23-14 victory over the Houston Texans. In that game, Kelce was the target leader. He was the reception leader, 7 catches on 8 targets for 117 yards and a touchdown. Xavier Worthy had 5 catches. He was the only wide receiver to catch a pass in the contest, as Mahomes only completed 16 passes in the win. Against the Bills, Xavier Worthy was the standout in the passing game. He got the lion's share of the targets, 7, and receptions, 6 for 85 yards and a touchdown. Kelce's numbers were down to 2 catches for 19 yards. Other receivers got involved. Juju Smith-Schuster had 2 catches for 60 yards. Hollywood Brown got going early, 3 catches for 35 yards. DeAndre Hopkins caught an 11-yard pass. So the Chiefs have spread it out. And going into this matchup against the Eagles, there's evidence to suggest that there might be an easy answer to this question. And here are the 2 points of evidence that would tell you that the passing game is going to look a little bit more in terms of who's getting the ball and how often they're getting looks. The passing game is going to look more like it did against Buffalo than it did against Houston. And here is that evidence, 2 pieces of evidence. Number one, according to Football Outsiders' DVOA metric, the Eagles were 3rd best in the league defending tight ends. A lot of that is Zach Bond, who's been one of the best coverage linebackers in football, if not the best. I haven't looked through all the numbers and ate all the tape, but there's a reason Zach Bond is a nominee for Defensive Player of the Year. And a good deal of that has to do with how sticky he's been as a linebacker in coverage. So the Eagles are ranked third in the league defending tight ends, but they are ranked 24th in the league defending wide receiver number 1, or the other team's top receiving target. That all points with neon blinking lights to another big game for Xavier Worthy. And you and I were talking off air about this, Brendan. It's been really fascinating to see Worthy evolve as this season has gone on, because when he was drafted The Chiefs already had Rashee Rice in place and had already signed Hollywood Brown. So the concept behind Xavier Worthy is, well, he's going to be the guy that stretches the field even further while those guys are able to work the underneath areas of the field. He's going to be the guy that can stretch the field, that can use him in gadget situations. They're not going to have to lean on Xavier Worthy to complete the skill set of a wide receiver in the Chiefs offense as a rookie. They can ask him to do what he's best at, running super fast. Obviously, things didn't end up breaking the right way for Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown to be integral parts of the Chiefs passing game. Rice is out for the year. Brown missed most of the regular season. And that required Worthy to evolve. And that was not a quick process. He wasn't a finished product at week 1, week 4, week 8, week 12. But the further we've gone along this year, Brendan, what we have seen, I think, from Xavier Worthy is a receiver who has enough in the bag, so to speak, that he can line up on the outside and be that wide receiver number 1 and beat coverage and get open in a variety of different ways. The Chiefs have done a tremendous job bringing Worthy along, and they were rewarded with a big game from him in the AFC Championship game, and the numbers suggest he could be in line for a big Super Bowl.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see him have a big Super Bowl game. I think that you're playing, with this Chiefs team, I think the pass catchers for the Chiefs, I guess I should phrase it the other way. I think the coverage guys for the Eagles across the board, all things considered, are better, just more talented than the pass catchers are for the Kansas City Chiefs at these stages of their careers. Like, we're talking about two legit Hall of Fame. Well, one guy who is without question going in, and Travis Kelce. One guy who I think has a pretty good case someday in DeAndre Hopkins, who that's who's on the Chiefs team. But Hopkins, again, has not been used a ton recently. More on him in a second. Kelce is older, obviously. He doesn't move the way he used to move. In fact, I just pulled it up because you mentioned how good Zach Bond has been for the Eagles in that kind of off-ball role. They've changed his position from what he was doing in New Orleans to what he's doing now in Philadelphia, and he's really taken off. He was a first-team All-Pro this year. Travis Kelce had his worst catch rate and just overall production when matched up on linebackers that he's had in his entire career, at least in the Next Gen Stats database, which goes back to about 2018, I believe. So you're looking at a guy who has been, and again, doesn't move as well, isn't quite as athletic, isn't quite as fast as he used to be. That used to be just murder for a linebacker. There was no one. But now if you get a hyper-athletic linebacker like Bond, who's playing in a very comfortable sort of position, which allows him to freelance a little bit against a guy like Kelce, who is not that same type of athlete, you can understand how those things connect. I think that we should see a lot of DeAndre Hopkins in this game. I don't know that we should see a lot of DeAndre Hopkins targets in this game, though. I'm just looking at the depth chart for the Eagles here, and they start with Slay and Quinyon Mitchell as the outside corners, Cooper DeJean at the nickel, and then C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship are your starting safeties. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I know the Chiefs don't like to do this, admittedly. They don't like to do this because it is still, even if some of the concepts have changed over time, this is still at its core a West Coast offense. Andy Reid is a West Coast offense guy who learned under West Coast offense guys. That is at his core what he wants this offense to be. You can look at how they build through the trenches as well. It is super ingrained in that tree. They don't like to have guys just run routes to clear space. They don't like to have guys run routes to be decoys. We heard about that early in Mahomes' career, right? That like, hey, these receivers have got to be paying attention because your route is always part of the progression.
Right.
It's why the Chiefs don't like to chip, because they don't like having a running back or a tight end not be available to go run a route, or why they don't bring Max Protect all that often.
Great point.
That being said, I want Hopkins out there a bunch. I want Hopkins outside. Matt Harmon of Yahoo Sports has called this the sacrificial X receiver. Like, leave him out there. He's going to run routes. He's going to run them well. He might not get a lot of targets, though. And he's going to be out there, and either Quinyon Mitchell or Darius Slay is going to have to respect potential future Hall of Famer DeAndre Hopkins running the numbers the entire game. He might get 2 targets, maybe. But he's going to run vertical routes. He's going to run benders and outbreakers and inbreakers and goes all game long because you have to cover that guy. And the Chiefs want to make sure Darius Slay is not involved in covering anyone else, or Quinyon Mitchell or whoever. You're taking that guy out. If they've got more talent than you've got, Use a guy who you might not be throwing the ball too much anyway. Get them out of the picture, because I feel a lot better if you only have to deal with 2 of the 3 of DeJean, Mitchell, and Slay, as opposed to all 3 of them on any given play. So I hope we see a lot of DeAndre Hopkins. And you know what? If they start cheating up, they start not focusing a whole lot of attention on him, you've got DeAndre Hopkins running down the field. You can throw one up and have D-Hop make a play. So I say all of that because I support what you said there. I think that opens up things really for either Hollywood Brown or for Xavier Worthy to get some underneath stuff and to try to pick up yards after the catch with that. Same principle I'm talking about with Hopkins could probably apply to Travis Kelce a little bit as well, trying to take Zach Bond out of the picture a little bit. I know the Chiefs don't love to do that, but I think this would be a time to employ at least a little bit of that to try to mitigate some of the personnel advantages the Eagles have.
You know where the Eagles aren't good defending the pass? The red zone.
Nope. They're not.
They have really struggled defending the pass in the red zone as the field compresses. I'm not telling you to go bet a Travis Kelce anytime touchdown, but
bet it.
But I'm not giving advice. I'm just saying that that would maybe draw a second look from me if I were scrolling a list of Super Bowl player props. We'll do some props next week as we get set for the Super Bowl itself. Right now, we're going to take a quick time out on the program. We're jam-packed today. Rick Peterson, bottom of this hour for the local sports spotlight. CJ Moore, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour, Big 12 basketball breakdown. Mitch Holthus at 5:25, voice of the Chiefs. Plus, your thoughts on the text line, 785-272-9429, and in the live chat on the YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk. We're just getting started on a Thursday afternoon on 580 Sports Talk. We're just getting started On a Thursday on 580 Sports Talk, Dan and Brendan. Spencer will be in a bit. Rick Peterson, TopSports.news, going to join us in just a moment for the local sports spotlight. We talked last week going into the AFC Championship game about the Chiefs' woes against tight ends in coverage and wondered if that might mean that Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox might be in line to be impactful for the Bills on Sunday. And part of that was Kincaid didn't play in the first meeting, so Chiefs don't have, any in-game experience handling both of those guys this season, how they were both being used together. Anyway, those guys combined for 20 yards on 3 receptions. And Kincaid dropped a ball at the end of the game that could have been pretty pivotal. But I don't give him as much grief for mishandling that pass at desperation heat from Josh Allen as others. But anyway, the point is, Knox and Kincaid didn't do anything. Going into the Super Bowl, Dallas Goedert had a big game against Washington in the NFC Championship game. He had 7 catches on 8 targets for 85 yards. Also had a couple of carries for 19 yards. Eagles deploying him on a couple of tight end rounds that went for good chunks of yardage, successful plays. Is Goddard a guy that you have concern about beating you if you're the Chiefs? Do you look at the Eagles passing game and say, that's the guy, maybe more so? We feel like Trent McDuffie can win a matchup. We feel like, Jalen Watson should probably be the most healthy he's been since returning and play the most snaps he's played in the game since returning. Feel good about where they're at on the outside. The Eagles aren't great in the slot. They don't have a great slot receiver necessarily, or a third target. Goddard's really it outside of Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. Do you look at him as a guy that, the Chiefs had better really concern themselves with him? Or do you feel like the way the Chiefs have performed down the stretch, or at least in the AFC Championship game, make the fear of opponent tight ends feel like a bit of a relic of the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season?
So I don't know that I would call it a relic, but I was diving through the next-gen stats data just a moment ago. And Dallas Goedert, so far this postseason, has caught 14 balls for 178 yards and a touchdown. That is the most yards. Again, this is next-gen stats. The most yards out of 11, that's from 11 personnel. So just 1 tight end, 1 running back, 3 wide receivers. That is the most productive postseason stretch out of 11 personnel for a tight end since 2021 Travis Kelce, when he was incredible during that postseason until it unfortunately came to an end in the AFC Championship game. The Eagles, weirdly though, only run 11 personnel the 16th most out of anyone in the NFL. Like, they're right in the middle of the pack of how often they run that personnel grouping. It's their most common one, but they do mix it up a bunch. They only run it 60% of the time. And it's not like they're going to throw the ball every single, if they're going to run 60 plays in the game, roughly, I don't know what that math is off the top of my head, but okay, they're going to run roughly like 36 plays out of 11 personnel. They're not going to throw the ball to Dallas Goedert 36 times. They're going to run a ton out of that.
Yeah.
You have to throw to A.J. Brown. You have to throw to Devontae Smith. You're going to mix it into a couple other receivers. I mean, how many targets is he going to see out of that? There are other formations too. I understand that it's kind of a noisy statistic. But my point is, yes, I think Dallas Goedert is a concern. I would frame it this way. I think Dallas Goedert is the biggest mismatch because I don't think the Chiefs have a clear, like Derwin James was the Kelce stopper in theory. Like, they don't really have a great a huge safety who's like, yep, like Justin Reed, you're huge. You're a tight end stopping safety. They don't really have that. Whereas I think, I feel pretty good about Trent McDuffie on A.J. Brown. Like, Brown might get his a little bit, but I think Trent McDuffie's elite. I think he's among the best of the best at his position. I think Jalen Watson is right up there as one of the best number 2 corners matched up on one of the best number 2 wide receivers. Like, I kind of like those matchups. And they'll catch some passes, but I like how the Chiefs match up. I think for Goddard, there's no clear, there's no Zach Bond on this defense, right? Like, none of the Chiefs linebackers are like, wow, in space, this dude is going to swallow you up. No, I like Leo Chanel in this game. We'll talk about that, later on before the game gets here, but that's not really his game either. So I think he's the biggest mismatch, but I also just don't know how often they're going to get him the ball, if that makes sense. Like, I'm curious what his role in their game plan is. Do you just do, hey, we're going to do everything we did to get to this point? Or do you mix it up and say, hey, they've got a weakness, we're just going to poke at it until they figure out a way to bandage it up? I'm not sure what the Eagles are going to do. I find Nick Sirianni kind of unpredictable in that way, to be honest with you. So it's a concern, but I don't think it's like overwhelming.
Right.
Oh God, we have no way to stop it. Like a bad run defense would be against Saquon.
Right.
Like that is a major, oh bleep. Like, what do we do? I don't think it's that kind of mismatch.
No, I would say I agree with you. We'll take another time out here on 580 Sports Talk. Rick Peterson joins us next for the local sports spotlight. We are joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline by the great Rick Peterson of TopSports.news, covering all things Shawnee County High School sports and Washburn University athletics at TopSports.news. You can catch him every Thursday at this time on the program on the local sports spotlight. And Pistol, this is a monster day for high school sports in the city of Topeka, and we'll get to all of what's happening today in a bit. But I want to backtrack to the Topeka Invitational Tournament last weekend on Saturday. A very long day at the Dungeon with 4 total overtimes being played across 2 games. But the championship game was worth the wait, with Highland Park outlasting Topeka West 44-41. What did you take away from getting to see those 2 teams face off in the TIT final?
Well, that they both can be 5A contenders. West impressed me, even though they lost that game. And, you know, those 2 teams are going to play again right away. But, yeah, they're both good. They're both good teams, and they both showed that they can play a lower scoring game and be effective at it. So
That's the biggest thing for Highland Park, isn't it? They have to prove, they feel like they have to prove throughout the regular season that they can win any kind of game, because a lot of the games they play in the Meadowlark Conference are going to be, not all of them, but a lot of them are going to be pretty one-sided up and down affairs. They're going to be a lot better than most of the teams they play in that league. So when they play real quality competition, like Shawnee Mission North, even in the first round, that whole tournament, Shawnee Mission North, Lawrence, and Topeka West, they took 3 big punches from those 3 teams, but were able to win because they executed really well down the stretch. And they feel like they have to prove that, don't they?
Yeah, and they did it again on Tuesday. They go up to Atchison and win another very, very tight game, took control of the Meadowlark race. Them and Atchison are the teams that beat year in and year out in that race. And so, yeah, they've proven it, basically in 4 straight games that they don't have to score 90 and have 10 dunks to win.
Another team that won their midseason basketball tournament, was boys tournament week last week, was Shawnee Heights, who rolled in the Shawnee Mission West tournament, just beat Leavenworth on Tuesday. What's starting to click for Ken Darting's bunch?
I think they're really starting to play defense, which is what Darting always preaches. And he always preaches sharing the ball, and it seems like they're doing that a little more. So I think, again, I mean, the city is loaded with 5A contenders.
Yeah, that's a really impressive team, no question about it. Also, Hayden won their mid-season tournament, and that's a team that obviously they've had a lot of upheaval at head coach in recent years and play a very difficult schedule. But for them to beat the defending 3A state champs and a top 5 team in Class 4A in Baldwin in that Baldwin tournament, winning on the road in the final and winning fairly handily, certainly looks like Dwayne Anthony has that Hayden bunch rounding into good form.
Well, and they moved all the way up to 4, I believe it was, in the 4A rankings. So people are taking notice.
Rick Peterson is our guest, joining us here on the local sports spotlight on 580 Sports Talk. We do it every Thursday at this time, shining a spotlight on Shawnee County High School sports and Washburn University athletics. Mentioned today was a big day. Capital City Classic gets underway. It's girls basketball tournament week. 4 city teams in this tournament. Highland Park plays Topeka West later tonight in a first-round game. Shawnee Heights playing Blue Valley right now as we speak. Later tonight, Washburn Rural takes on Free State in another first-round game. What's your read on this tournament, and what's kind of at stake for all 4 teams in the Capital City Classic?
Well, I think they all just want to make some moves forward. Highland Park's going to be tested, more than they've been tested probably all year for 3 games. Shawnee Heights is in a battle right now with Blue Valley, and it's, 17-14 now. And so it's good. And, West is just trying to make some strides. So I think they just want to play well and make some strides.
Also today, city swimming happening at the Cap Fed Natatorium, and that's always a big deal. What do you expect to hear from city swimming? What is your outlook on some of the big events and the big stars that might come out for city swimming?
Well, Rural is a team to beat again. They usually are, and they would have to be the favorite. Jackson Cowden, Topeka High, is going for his, and it's probably over by now, going for his 4th straight city diving title. And, this is the start for swimming of the crunch time. Then they go to league, and then they don't have regionals, so then they go right to state.
We're joined by Rick Peterson from TopSports.news, joining us for the local sports spotlight here on 580 Sports Talk. Head over to TopSports.news to find Pistol and his crew's great work covering all things sports for our local high schools in Shawnee County and as well as Washburn sports. And I did want to make sure to ask you a couple of Washburn questions here, Pistol. Big doubleheader tonight. The men and women of Washburn taking on Fort Hays State. Again, you can listen to those games over on Country 106.9 this evening. The men's game, that is a doozy. What is Washburn going to have to do to repeat their effort from the first game against Fort Hays State, Pistol? Because as I talked about with Brett Ballard yesterday, and I'm sure you did as well, it is no fun playing against that Tiger defense.
No, it's not. But you know what? I think Washburn has already proven that they can play any style. it may take a little adjusting because the Tigers are so good defensively. But I just think, I still pick Washburn almost always because of all the weapons they have and the fact that they do play good defense themselves.
And I have to imagine, too, it's got to feel pretty good coming off of a 30-plus or a near 30-point win over the weekend to then, get back home. It should be a great crowd tonight and to have that positive momentum behind them. I talked to Brett Ballard for our coaches show last night and said, do you feel like your guys were a little more locked in Saturday after having a tough one on Wednesday? And he said, oh, yeah, absolutely. So I would imagine, Pistol, they're going to be even more locked in returning home tonight.
And I really expect them to have a great crowd, which always helps, too.
The women's game, first game of the doubleheader, it tips off at 5:30 tonight at Lee Arena. I know that the women lost and lost handily the first time, and I asked Coach Westling this too. Do you think, Pistol, you can take anything away from a game in which Washburn did not have Bari Widada available first time out?
No, and Emeka Ford was on limited minutes, so no. I think they have two things that they want to build on. One, they don't want another 30-point loss, obviously. But two, they really didn't think they played well Saturday at Missouri Western. So they're looking to really improve and kind of wipe both those bad tastes out of their mouth.
As far as I'm concerned, as long as this group cleans up the turnovers a little bit, they can compete with absolutely anybody. 24 turnovers or some crazy number it was against Missouri Western over the weekend. Still only lost by 6 on the road. Do you feel the same way, that a cleaner game means this Washburn team can go toe-to-toe with anyone?
Yes. I mean, I think they're getting to that point, and that's what Laura said yesterday. They're getting to that point where they do feel like they can play with anyone. So, and see, I think we forget, Brendan, and you and I forget too, because we see them all the time. This is a team that has 0 seniors. So they're building for the future.
Yep. Still such a young team, a developing team. A couple more Washburn questions for Rick Peterson from TopSports.news, joining us for the local sports spotlight here on 580 Sports Talk, as he does every Thursday at this time. I know you got a chance to talk some Washburn baseball and softball yesterday as well with their respective head coaches. Let's start on the softball diamond with Brenda Holliday, obviously the local legend. How's she feeling about her group as they get the season started here soon?
They're obviously lost some really good seniors, leading with J.C. Genner and Merritt Mead. But she likes them, and she really wants to see this weekend. She'll know, as most coaches do early in the season, she'll know a lot more after this weekend. And she's really looking forward to that, to helping her success her team.
Same question as it goes for Washburn baseball, which opens up its season this weekend down in Arkansas, and got to go to the hot weather states to play these early season games before returning home to Valley Field. How does Harley Douglas feel about a group that last year was one of the best offenses in all of Division II baseball, some of the best power numbers in all of Division II baseball? How's he feeling about his squad as the season opens up this weekend?
Yeah, I think he likes them, and again, he wants to see what they look like this week, but no, they just got to have a more solid effort on the mound, and I think if they do, I think they're an NCAA regional type team.
Couple more questions for Rick Peterson of TopSports.news as we wrap up the local sports spotlight here on 580 Sports Talk. Pistol, other than the Capital City Classic, which you are in attendance at for night 1 of 3 right now at Topeka West High School, what else do you have your eye on in the city and county for high school sports this weekend?
Well, obviously the Emporia Glacier's Edge tournament's a very good tournament, and Seaman's going to be tested down there, and that's probably good for Matt Tinsley's group. Washburn, let's switch sports here. Washburn Rural's girls wrestling team is going to host one of the state's biggest tournaments on Saturday. So for wrestling fans, head out there. So it's like always this time of year, Dan, it's busy.
It most certainly is, and you can read all about it at TopSports.news with Rick Peterson and staff. All things Shawnee County High School sports and Washburn University athletics at TopSports.news. Rick Peterson joins us every Thursday for the local sports spotlight. Pistol, thanks for taking the time. I expect I'll see you tomorrow night at the Capital City Classic.
I'll be here.
All righty, we'll see you then. Thanks for the time, Pistol.
Thank you.
That is Rick Peterson. We will take a timeout on 580 Sports Talk. Come back and wrap up this 3 o'clock hour next. Well, either or over under time on 580 Sports Talk before we wrap up this 3 o'clock hour. Over under, we're going to talk K-State hoops next segment. They got 11 Big 12 games left. Over under 4.5 more Big 12 wins for Jerome Tang's bunch.
How many we got left?
11 to go. They are currently 3-6.
Oh, so they've got to go at least.
They would have to go 5-6.
5-6.
Next one is at Iowa State.
I am going to go under. I'd love to see it over, but schedule's too daunting. I still don't. They're playing a lot better. I think they're being coached better. I think there's more buy-in from the roster, all of which are
Certainly
good.
that. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're competitive in all 11. But I think it's too much of an uphill climb to ask for nearly 500, so I'm going to go under.
Yeah, I'm right there with Brendan. I think you might have turned a corner, but your schedule definitely doesn't help you down the stretch, especially you want to continue to build on what you have, and you're facing one of the top teams in the country this weekend.
They can beat Arizona State and Colorado at home. I think they can go get UCF on the road. Can they get Arizona State on the road? Can they get Cincinnati on the road? Can they steal one on the Utah trip? And then they've got Kansas, Arizona, and Iowa State coming to Bramlage. That's who's left.
I mean, based on recent memory, they'll beat KU at Bramlage Coliseum.
They've never not done that under Jerome Tang.
No, they have not.
Small sample, but still.
I'll call my shot now. K-State at Cincinnati will be the worst game of the year. Not because K-State's necessarily going to lose. It'll just be hideous because those two teams are addicted to playing gross basketball against each other.
K-State beat them at Bramlage to open Big 12 play. There might be, like, I can't go higher than 5. Like, I can't get to a winning record. I can see it. If they play, they have to play well on the road.
Yeah.
Because most of their winnable games, I think, are away from home. Like, could they go to Utah and win? Sure. Is that an easy thing to do? No.
Yeah. No, I could see it. I just don't think it's likely. Sure. I'll put it that way. All right, real quick for me. I know you guys will get to this in the 5 o'clock hour, but over under half, 0.5 more bullpen arms the Royals need to add before opening day after adding Carlos Estevez yesterday afternoon.
I think they're set.
Yeah.
I think they're set. I think that I was a little surprised this, $10 million a year that they're giving Estevez for the next 2 seasons didn't go to a bat. They could have done Austin Hayes for $5 million and he would have upgraded their lineup. Yeah. I think they're hurting more there, but maybe they're leaning all the way into run prevention and saying, look, we're going to strengthen the depth of our bullpen and back our starters, and we might only need 3 runs to win a game.
And they've got to make a decision on who they're cutting because they've got to cut somebody on their 40. They don't have enough room on their 40-man
for Estevez.
Yeah. No, that's another decision that needs to be made. I think they're set too. I think this is shaping up like a good bullpen. I don't know if it's elite, but I think this is a good, ready-made day one bullpen.
Dudes throw hard. I tell you that it is a power bullpen. Ersteg, Estevez, Zerpa. These guys throw gas.
Dayton Moore, you will not see the pearly gates.
Brendan's got Washburn basketball against Fort Hays State. He's headed out. We're talking K-State hoops. We got CJ Moore coming up next hour, 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk, a Thursday edition on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and live on video, our streaming video available on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and on our Facebook page, WIBW News. Great to have you along. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to spend with us. I am Dan Lucero. Spencer Dupuis is now across the glass. Brendan Dworzinski headed to Lee Arena for Washburn basketball tonight. An in-state battle in the MIAA as the Fort Hays State Tigers come calling. Women's game tips at 5:30. Men's game follows. Coverage on our sister station, your exclusive home of the Ichabods, Country 106.9, gets underway at 5:15. And Brendan is on the call from high atop Lee Arena in the Crow's Nest tonight. When you do basketball, Spencer, do you prefer a spot in the Crow's Nest or above the bleachers, or do you rather have a spot down on the floor or behind the scorer's table, low on the bleachers? What's your preference?
See, my preference changed. Well, it didn't change. I love being on the table, and there's a weird reason for that. So when I was in college doing games, the first game that I did, they were like, oh, the first year I was there, they were like, hey, like forever, everybody from the student radio called it on the court. And then the old journalist guy, columnist for the local paper, was complaining that we were being too loud while he was trying to write his column.
You got Brendan.
Yeah.
This happened to Brendan at the NCAA tournament. He was
except for
too loud in the media row. Except you were doing your job.
Yes. So we went from courtside to up behind a basket.
Oh, yeah, that's tough.
And you miss what's going on the other side. Like, that's
do.
where I lacked so much. Like, I would go back and watch the games and listen to my call, try to get better.
No,
you'd be like, well, I just missed what happened over there.
You have to have the side view. That's really kind of non-negotiable.
Yeah. So I'm non-negotiable now that I'm like, it's got to be courtside table. Make a table for me. Because when I had my last job, we would go in the bleachers. It sucked because people would be around you. They would try to talk to you. I
don't mind that. I don't mind being a man of the people. We go to, because it's different.
But it's different because they try to talk to you while you're
on the air.
Well,
some people got to know better than that.
Yeah,
that's a them problem.
Yeah,
that's not a problem for you.
The best one though is when you're on like a crow's nest and there's nobody.
Yes,
like the way that they used to do bleachers in West Virginia high schools was they would have an extra set. Nobody comes to, not enough people go to games anymore.
Right.
But they would have an extra set up top where you had to go from a different way of the school to get there. So we would just be up there. It was the best.
Yeah, be unbothered.
Yes.
And have a little because I don't mind like having the higher up view of the court to able to take it in. You're not looking through a coach or a referee or a player standing at the scorer's table ready to check in. Like those things are a little distracting, but you definitely feel the game better when you're down on the court.
Yeah.
But I grew to enjoy the Crow's Nest at Washburn because it does. It gives you a good perspective from high up top. You can see plays develop. You can there are pluses and minuses for all of it. So, but I was curious what you thought of that.
Yeah, anyhow, I've got a whole thing for it.
Oh yeah, you certainly do. I had no idea that it included a crabby beat writer for
not even a beat writer, a columnist.
Oh, a crabby column. Those guys are crabby by default.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This guy once got into a spatting. He was spatting back and forth with the SID because he didn't know how to read the box score. Because some box scores will give you 2-point baskets and 3-point baskets.
Yes.
Instead of field goals and 3-point baskets. Marshall at one point had switched softwares or something for one of the CIT tournament they were in. So they couldn't use their own stat broadcast. So he was coming in and he was like, well, this doesn't make any sense. These are wrong. These are all wrong. And yeah. And then the guy that was the beat writer, who is now ironically the SID, had to come in and
break it up. That's too funny. Coming up on the final 2 hours of 580 Sports Talk today, We are going to bring you the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, coming up at about 5:25. A busy day on 5A Sports Talk headlines. That is coming up in just a little bit.
I just added one to it.
Yeah, we got a baseball headline. Not a Royals headline, but
No.
we have a baseball headline. A future Hall of Famer has a new team. We will maybe get to that in headlines because, like I said, there's a lot. We're going to get out of the way of that for Mitch Holthus. So we're just going to fly through stuff on headlines today. Bottom of this hour, CJ Moore from The Athletic will join us for the Big 12 basketball breakdown. Get CJ's perspective on KU and K-State and their current form and the rest of the Big 12. Also coming up in a bit, the January semifinals of What Is Wrong With You. We are down to 4 stories. Sometimes it's a stretch to give a story a name. We came up with easy names with the help of some of our listeners for all 4 of our January winners, and we will pit them against each other in the semifinal round on What Is Wrong With You for the month of January. Want to hear from you folks today? Jump into the live chat on YouTube. If you are watching in your web browser, 580 Sports Talk is our YouTube channel. If you're watching on the mobile app, there's a live chat as well. Excuse me. And you can comment throughout the show, interact with us and your fellow listeners. You can also text the program. The text line is open, 785-272-9429. We'll pick up where we left off a little bit with either or over under. Kansas State last night beat the brakes off of Oklahoma State. I figured K-State was going to win. I did not think they had that level of dominance in them, but they had it in them right from the jump. They went out to 10-0 lead and never looked back. I believe they forced 16 first-half turnovers. They led at halftime by 22. Jerome Tang called a timeout to put defensive pressure on to force a turnover and get a hoop and push the lead to 22 at the end of the first half. Led by as many as 32. They win it by 28 last night, 85-57. For their first back-to-back wins this season since wins that came over Longwood and Arkansas Pine Bluff. So suffice it to say, it's been a while.
We're getting some stuff done around the apartment as we prepare to move last night. Last night we were doing it. We're not moving for a couple weeks, whatever. And I turned to my girlfriend. I said, let me turn on the K-State game because it's on CBS Sports Network.
Yeah.
And let me see. I was like, they're either up by 15 or down by 30. And they were up by 12.
They dominated this basketball game. They had 4 double-figure scorers. They shot 12 of 23 from 3. They forced 21 turnovers and scored 28 points off of those turnovers. It was a command performance. And what a team with Kansas State's talent should do to a team that does not have as much talent. And Oklahoma State, clearly, I think man for man, I know they've got 2 league wins and Colorado doesn't have any. I still think Colorado's better than Oklahoma State. It's not by a lot, but I think Oklahoma State's the least talented roster in the entire league, and it's year 0 for Steve Lutz, and that's kind of the way it was always going to be. Kansas State had gotten blown out in Stillwater, and it looked like they remembered and maybe took it personally, and they played great basketball. And going back to that point about the late timeout and the late score to get up by 22 going into the locker room, you can't do that unless you really trust your guys. And we have come to a point where now Jerome Tang and the regular rotation players for Kansas State have found that trust in each other. And look, if you're a K-State fan and you're a little frustrated even by this recent run of play, because I know it's just 2 straight wins, but you go back to the way they played against Baylor, and you go back to the way they played against Kansas, and you go back to the way they played against Texas Tech. 3 of the better teams, I would say 3 of the top 6 teams comfortably in the conference. And K-State played really well, all things considered, against all 3 of those teams. Should have beaten Tech at home. That was a meltdown. Played KU tough at Allen Fieldhouse, even after falling behind early. Played Baylor tough, led late in Waco. The last 3 weeks, we have seen this Kansas State team play about how I thought they were going to play, about how an optimistic observer would have expected that this K-State team might play. And if you're frustrated by this as a K-State fan, that it took this long, oh, sure, Now you got things figured out. Now you got your act together when you're 3-6 in the league and you're 9-11 overall. And it doesn't mean anything because you're probably not going to be able to stack enough wins to get to the NCAA tournament. So it's going to be 2 straight years out of the tournament. And that's not what anybody wants as a fan. So I understand if you're frustrated that it took this long to get here because we went through the schedule. It is, in all likelihood, too little and too late. The schedule is not easy from here for the Wildcats. Their next game is at Hilton Coliseum. That is going to be difficult, to say the least. After that, they're at Arizona State. Then they're home against Kansas and Arizona, at BYU and at Utah, Saturday, Monday, short trip out to the Beehive State. Then they've got Arizona State at home, at UCF, home to Colorado, at Cincinnati, home to Iowa State. The road games are the easier games on paper. Arizona State on the road, Utah on the road, UCF on the road, Cincinnati on the road feel winnable, but they're hard to get because they're road games. And I wouldn't expect them to go to BYU and win. And I certainly wouldn't expect them to go to Iowa State and win. The home opponents left, Kansas, Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Iowa State. Can they find a way to go 3-2 against that home schedule? That would require stealing one against Kansas, Arizona, or Iowa State. And I don't know.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but
the Iowa State game, it's senior day, right? And it's the last day of the regular season, and sometimes you just get a lift on senior day. And maybe that's a game. Maybe that's the one of those. And of course, K-State fans will be quick to remind you, in case you've forgotten, K-State is 2-0 against KU at Bramlage under Jerome Tang. So it's not unthinkable. And based on their current run of form, it's not unthinkable that they could find a way to maybe get 3 of those games, maybe get 2 of the road games, and you end up with an 8-12 conference record, and that's not good, and it's not good enough. They needed to probably win 13 conference games to get to the NCAA tournament. That would mean going 10-1 from here. That ain't happening. That ain't happening. They don't have quite enough talent to make that happen. But this season stopped being about the end result a long time ago. The question stopped being, can we make the tournament? That's dead and gone. That's not happening. The question became, for K-State basketball, what kind of program do you want to be? And Jerome Tang's first answer to that question was, well, we don't want to be a mercenary, NIL-driven, transfer portal-driven program any longer. He has pulled the ripcord on that and essentially said that the way that we built this roster is not going to be the way that we can build a roster moving forward. To the extent that you can answer other questions about what kind of program K-State wants to be over a 5-game sample, I think the answers so far have been positive ones. You're seeing buy-in on both ends of the court from the guys who are your regular rotation players. Right now, that's your starters, McDaniel, Max Jones, Hawson, Hawkins, and Gasson, CJ Jones, David Castillo, and then your other rotation guys getting a variety of different levels of minutes depending on the matchup, Moby, Kegaruka, and Hugo and Yenso. Those are your rotation guys. Everybody's pulling the rope in the same direction right now. Doug McDaniel is playing with confidence and with freedom and is playing like the point guard that I think K-State envisioned that he could be. And it's no mistake that has coincided with K-State's best stretch of the season. It is also not a mistake that McDaniel's creation and ability to score for himself and create for others has freed up Coleman Hawkins to be the best version of himself. The stat line you get from Hawkins last night is what you get from Hawkins when he's playing his best. 15 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, and 3 block shots. That is like the platonic ideal of a Coleman Hawkins game. That's what you're going to get from that guy when he's comfortable in his role, not having to be the creator and the scorer. He can just do what works best for him, what's needed from him on a given night. And now everything else kind of fits around those two guys. David Gasson's size and rebounding and hustle and scoring at the rim. Brendan Hawson's three-point shooting. Max Jones is the 5th starter, kind of doing the dirty work, scoring at all 3 levels, defending. It's not perfect, even this version of K-State that we're seeing, if you could restart the season all over again, I don't know that you would consider them like a Big 12 contender. But it's also not embarrassing. And that's the point we were at after the Houston game, right? Like, not only is this bad, not only are these guys not pulling the rope in the same direction, but this is kind of embarrassing to lose like that at home, even to a superior team. Like, it can't be that. And we did wonder, how much control does Jerome Tang have over this program? How much of a hold does he have on this group of guys? How much can we trust Tang's ability to get guys to play together, to buy into a system, to a style, to a level of effort, to a level of commitment, particularly with a season that looked like it was about to slip away? And I think that those questions have been answered in the affirmative. That yes, Jerome Tang can get buy-in from his players. Yes, he can get guys to pull the rope in the right direction, in the same direction together. Yes, he can roll out a system that works with the players that he has. And to see guys who are seniors on this team, like Hawkins, like Max Jones, those one-year seniors who are playing for this team, guys are only going to be on the team for a year, that they're still playing as hard as they are. That shows that there is buy-in now for this Kansas State team. And yes, it's too little, too late. And it may not even result in any postseason at all. Like, if they don't get better at closing close games, Tyler points out they could be lucky to make the NIT, and that's true. That's absolutely true. But what we're seeing from them now is better late than never as it pertains to Jerome Tang's ability to get his players to buy in, and this program's ability, this current team's ability to play at a competitive level. Because there was a big question whether or not they would be competitive the rest of the way. And I don't think there's any question about that now, that what you're going to see night in and night out from Kansas State is going to be a representative in a positive way of what that jersey represents, and it's going to be tough to beat on a night in, night out basis.
Did you see what Tang said after the game about practice lately?
Yeah, it was an interesting point he made, that talking about Tyreek Smith, who's been added as a midseason transfer, who's only going to be a one-year guy for them.
If he gets eligibility.
If he's eligible, yeah. He says that that's cranked practice up and brought a little more intensity to the practices. The thing that stood out to me the most from Tang's post-game remarks, he referred to February. The month of February, as you get started, those could be the dog days in college basketball, because you've withstood January. The grind of the conference season has begun. You're dealing with fatigue. You're dealing with injuries. You're dealing more in this league now with travel than you ever have. That February can be a really difficult month. And Jerome Tang said in the postgame, I don't feel like the dog days are ahead of us. I feel energetic and refreshed. And the team looks energetic and refreshed. And that, to me, could be something that gives them an edge in the month of February. If they found, I won't call it their second win, because that suggests that they had a first win that was worth talking about in the first place. But they found some wind for their sails. And I think you're going to see them be real competitive in the final 11 games of Big 12 play. Even if it's going to be really hard for them to accomplish the goals they want to accomplish, I would even say impossible still at this point. The fact that they're playing like this, the fact that they're getting contributions from guys who do have another year of eligibility, like David Castillo, like CJ Jones, like Moby Ike Garuka.
Yeah, I think
career high 8 points last night for Moby.
I was just going to say,
that dude can jump.
Yeah,
man.
and when he's slamming down, I think when he's slamming down dunks, I think things are good for this K-State team just because of where they are.
Not just the 8 points either. The fact that he had 3 boards and 3 steals, that was the proof of concept game for Moby a little bit, in a way that I don't think we've seen a proof of concept game for him yet. But all of those guys, Castillo and Moby and CJ Jones and Yenso off the bench, and Hassan and McDaniel in the starting lineup, those guys all have another year at least to come back and be a part of something. And if they can play well down the stretch, it increases the chance that the thing they want to be a part of is in Manhattan. And then you've got a foundation for next year. You've got some pillars that you can build on and grow with next year. and the year after that, and the year after that. That's what had to happen for this program, is not just the abandoning of the idea that, well, we're just going to go splash the cash in the transfer portal, and that's going to be how we build an NCAA tournament team every year. It's not just realizing that's not going to work. It's being able to take concrete steps midstream in putting the pieces together for next season so that you don't have to start from scratch next year. So you do have guys who don't go swimming in the portal and come back and are those foundational guys. Your next David Gassans, your guys who are going to be part of the program for 2 or 3 years and help you set a culture and help make sure that seasons like this don't happen again. Those steps are being taken in the right direction for Kansas State basketball right now. We'll take a timeout here on 580 Sports Talk. We got CJ Moore coming up. We'll get his thoughts on K-State, KU, and all other things Big 12 hoops as he joins us in just a little bit. But first, it's the January semifinals of What Is Wrong With You coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. What is wrong with you time on 580 Sports Talk? We have reached the point in a month where it is time to take our weekly winners and pit them against each other to determine a monthly champion. We'll pick our monthly champion tomorrow. We have to get from 4 down to 2 today, and that is what we are doing. It is the What is Wrong With You January semifinals. First semifinal, this short week winner, story that was dubbed by Paul on YouTube, Sister Act a Fool. 2 sexagenarian siblings in Florida, Kathleen and Maureen Deegan, who were arrested for getting into a fight at the church where their father's funeral had just been held. because the elder sister, Kathleen, 66, apparently did not mention younger sister, Maureen, 60, her 24-year-old daughter. And the two of them came to blows over the snub in the eulogy. Kathleen was arrested for misdemeanor battery. Maureen was charged with felony battery because her alleged victim was older than 65. That's Sister Act a Fool. Its opponent, story I called Frost D the Snowman, also known as 6 inches of snow or simply snowballs, out in Warrington, Cheshire, England, at the Grappenhall Sports Club's rugby pitch. Somebody built a 7-foot-tall snowman and then thought, something's missing. What if I put a penis on it? And then they did. Snow penis that you can see if you're watching on the YouTube live stream right now at 580 Sports Talk, our YouTube channel. It is blurred out just to be safe. But, that is somebody put a penis on a snowman. There's another shot, wide-angle shot. We have done a little clever editing there. So those are our first two semifinalists, Frost D, the Snowman, and the Sister Act a Fool. Spencer, who you got?
Oh, I don't know. This is a hard one.
This is a hard one. Brendan is voting for snowballs.
Yeah, I'm going with that as well.
Okay, I feel better now about voting for snowballs. It's really dumb. But, like, there was a carefully crafted, like, anatomically correct snowman. Like, this is a huge snowman. It was going to stand out. You could see it from across the street. And then somebody said, I don't know. Let me put the finishing touches on this by giving it male genitalia. So that's our first finalist for January. Our second semifinal, first up, Gasperson. 29-year-old Ian Gasperson, accused of committing several armed robberies at gas stations. That's why it's funny. Here's another reason it's funny. He was committing these crimes in a rented vehicle. And the vehicle, the rental company was able to confirm, that guy rented the car. And they were able to trace the name on the rented car back to the person that they suspected was committing all the robberies, which, again, his last name is literally Gasperson. Robbing gas stations in a rented vehicle. That's Gasperson. The other semifinalist, the fascist Falconer, and his PP, which stands for prized possession, but also stands for something else, because he was the team Falconer for Italian soccer club Lazio until the club fired him because he posted pictures of his penile implant on the internet, in addition to doing an interview where he talked about how much he loved his new penile implant because, well, he enjoys sexual activity. Let's just say that about the gentleman who had previously been suspended from his job for giving I guess they're calling it these days an Elon Musk salute, doing one of those and professing his fondness for, like, actual fascists like Mussolini and Generalissimo Franco. Yeah, that was only suspension worthy. You couldn't fire the guy for that because then you'd have to fire all of Lazio's fans who are no BS fascists, like, straight up. They are the team of fascists. If you are a fascist in Italy, you root for Lazio. They wouldn't fire him for that, but they fired him for putting his dong on the internet. So we got the fascist Falconer. We got Gasperson. Who you got?
I don't want to. I'm not going to. I'm going to pick Gasperson so it's not Dingaling versus Dingaling.
Oh, you don't want two penis stories?
No.
Tough break, because Brendan and I are both voting for the fascist Falconer. This dude just could not hold back. He had to tell the whole of Italy, the whole world, about how great his penile implant was. Had a cushy job. Like, not a lot of Falconers out there. Kind of a lost art. Not everybody gets to stand out in the middle of the field at a Serie A match and fly the team's mascot, an eagle, around. He had a cushy gig. He couldn't even get fired for doing Nazi stuff. You know how hard it is to have a job and not get fired for doing Nazi stuff? He had the cushiest job. All he had to do was not post hog on the internet, and he couldn't do that. And then he barricaded himself in the team facility after the fact because he could not accept the fact that got him fired.
Yeah, I guess so. I just didn't want two penile stories.
Well, I think the people did. So that's what we're giving them. 2 stories that involve male anatomy will face off in the January finals of What Is Wrong With You tomorrow. The Fascist Falconer and Frost D, the Snowman. CJ Moore has to follow that. Hopefully he's not listening. We're going to talk to CJ Moore from The Athletic for the Big 12 basketball breakdown next on 580 Sports Talk. We are pleased to be joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk by CJ Moore of The Athletic. He is the best college basketball feature writer in America, and he joins us every week for the Big 12 basketball breakdown. You can follow him across social media at CJ Moore Hoops. CJ, we were talking about K-State earlier this hour because they played last night and they dump trucked Oklahoma State at Bramlage Coliseum for their first back-to-back wins since wins over Longwood and Pine Bluff earlier this year. So suffice it to say, those have been a long time coming. Is it just as simple to say, CJ, that K-State has played better because Doug McDaniel has played better? Is he the guy that kind of makes it all work, crystallizes it a bit for what this team is supposed to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've told you guys a couple different times. I mean, I'll admit I haven't watched either of the last 2 games because I've kind of checked out on the Wildcats a little bit. But I do think that him and Coleman Hawkins have to play well for them to play well. And, this run is maybe a little bit schedule related, but beating West Virginia is an impressive win because that's an NCAA tournament team. And, Oklahoma State's kind of in a rebuilding phase, but to beat them like that was impressive. So, it's the start of something and kind of see where it goes. But yeah, I think to answer your question, I think Doug is a huge part of it. I think those two, kind of like their first team, Tang's first team in Manhattan, the 2 stars have to be stars and everybody else kind of has to fall in line and play their role. And so it's promising when he plays well.
How important is it? Because it's probably almost certainly too little, too late to matter with regards to a positive outcome for the 2024-25 season. But how important is it that K-State is able to put together more good performances and grab a few wins when they can down the stretch, considering that there's a lot of guys in their what is a 9-man rotation right now that have more eligibility following this season, and that if there's a chance to maybe keep some of these guys like a Brendan Hawson or a Doug McDaniel or a Hugo Onyenso around for another go-round, that K-State can sort of start to build a culture for that program instead of relying so heavily on the transfer portal, which Jerome Tang has all but said, even just halfway into this season, hey, this isn't going to work for us. It's not going to work for me.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important because, you win enough games and you can get into some kind of postseason like the NIT or something like that. And that, you've seen many teams throughout the years when they have like success in the NIT, for instance, it leads to something the next year. And I think the other reason why it's important is you've got to give something for your fans to get excited about, and for the people that are helping you with NIL, and for them to continue to give, and for you to continue to build rosters that you think can be competitive. So, fans and boosters will turn on you pretty quickly. And you don't want to be in that situation in this day and age in college basketball, because the support is so important. And it's not just fan support, it's, sometimes monetary support.
CJ Moore from The Athletic joining us for the Big 12 basketball breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk. Survived UCF, and those aren't just my words. Those are Bill Self's words following that 91-87 win at Allen Fieldhouse on Tuesday night. Imagine that will be from do not understand DeJuan Harris's importance to Kansas basketball, particularly when it comes to keeping things organized, because that was as disjointed a 40 minutes of basketball as I can recall seeing from Kansas for quite some time. And they were fortunate to pull it out. But what did it prove about DeJuan Harris in his absence, seeing that KU performance on Tuesday night?
Yeah, I think he's just kind of the glue, and he holds it together maybe on both ends. Offensively, they still scored 91 points. So as disjointed as it was, I think they'd take just disjointed every time if it meant 91 points. But, defensively, they were far from what they've been all year and what they expect to be. And, it was a strange game and a high possession game, but that's one that you just, like you said, you're happy you survive it and you move on. And I'm sure, it's a team that's actually good that you beat by 51 the first time around. Like, they have some pride, like they're going to come out and they're going to go all, to the wall. So I think that it's not surprising that UCF came out and played really, really hard and played them close.
Have you been surprised that Zeke Mayo has been this good and this productive for this Kansas team?
A little bit, only in that, like, when talking to Bill this summer, it was kind of like, well, I think we're gonna, we'll start two of, he knew he was going to start two of Rylan Griffin, AJ Storr and Zeke, and late in the summer it was definitely, Zeke's been the best one, but there wasn't like, oh, this guy's far and ahead of the others. So I'm not sure that they expected him to be like this much better than those other two. But I will say, watching those three at their previous spots, the one I was personally highest on was probably Zeke, because of his ability to make shots off the bounce. Rylan Griffin I knew was a good spot up shooter, but I thought was a little bit limited athletically. And then AJ Storr's game was just one I didn't, while he had ability, I didn't love. If you had asked me, which one of these is most likely to pop, I probably would have said Zeke.
KU goes to Waco on Saturday. It's a place they haven't won in a good long while. Let's assume DeJuan Harris is back. I know that was the hope from Bill Self in the Tuesday night press conference. Let's assume he's back, because if he's not, I think that's obviously a massive edge for Baylor. But if If KU's at full strength, because now KJ Adams is back, and if they can get Harris back for Saturday, what do they have to do to break the spell and get a win in Waco against Baylor?
They've got to figure out a way to keep BJ Edgecombe in check, because he has been really, really coming on strong. And, you don't want him to drop like a 30 ball on you. And we just saw what they struggled with another wing here recently. So you gotta keep him in check. You've got to be able to rebound on the defensive end, get some offensive boards. Baylor is a good offensive rebounding team, but they're not a good defensive rebounding team. And I think they've got to be able to score 75 plus points. Baylor's pretty good offensively, but they're not a great defensive team. And so this is a team KU shouldn't have issues scoring against, I wouldn't think. I think it's a very, very winnable game. I think Baylor's got some pretty good guards, but it's pretty thin up front. It should be a game KU should be able to throw it inside, and Hunter Dickinson should be able to have a lot of success, you would think.
We're talking Big 12 hoops with CJ Moore of The Athletic on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. We do it every Thursday at this time, the Big 12 basketball breakdown. Looking around the league as we're going to hit the midway point with this weekend's action. Everybody is 9 games into a 20-game season. Game 10 will be this weekend for everyone. Houston right now with a 1-game lead at the top of the league, 9-0 in Big 12 play. Is this Kelvin Sampson's best Houston team since joining the Big 12? Do you think they're better than last year, or do you think they're maybe just a little different than last year's team?
They're different. They're healthy. That's the big difference. I mean, I early on last year he lost Terrence Arsenault. It was about around this time I feel like he lost JoJo Tugler. Those were big losses for them a year ago, and by the end they were pretty thin. So they're healthy. They don't have, obviously, like, I think that Milo Suzan's done a really good job and been pretty good lately, but he is not the player that Jamal was. And, it's pretty much the same core around those guys. But I think just the fact that they're healthy, you could argue that they're better because of that, because, Terrence is their most important piece off the bench, and JoJo Tugler might be the best defensive player in the country.
Can they win a national title? Do you think they've got enough depth? And I mean, the immediate concern is obviously the Big 12. And look, they've had teams that have made runs to the Final Four. Last year, Shed doesn't get hurt. Maybe they beat Duke, and maybe they go to the Final Four last year. But this year, do you think they've got the depth and enough of what they need to make the run in March and maybe deliver Kelvin Sampson that first national championship?
Well, I did put out a story this week that I picked 3 teams that I thought would win the national championship. One of the 3 would win the national championship, and it was it was Alabama, Auburn, and Duke. So I'll stick to my prediction there. But on the teams that, if these teams won it, I wouldn't be surprised if they would. Houston was among them, and I will say, Houston has played Auburn this year, and Houston was up pretty late in that game. There was a point in that game where, I'm pulling it up here, Auburn had a 14.1% win probability at one point. So Houston was in pretty good control of that game. I think Houston's capable of beating anybody in college basketball. But I do think those 3 teams probably have higher ceilings and are more likely to win 6 in a row. But we are sitting here. I mean, Houston has not lost since November 30th. I was in the building in Vegas the last time they lost. So, or I guess I wasn't there that day. I left a day earlier, but point the same. They haven't lost since November 30th. So they're on quite a run here. So, saying they can't win 6 in a row seems a little silly. It seems that they've now won 13 in a row.
You should definitely read that story, by the way, CJ Moore. You should read all of his writing at The Athletic. A couple of more questions for you, CJ, here in the Big 12 basketball breakdown. At the midway point, or just shy of it, who would be your Big 12 player of the year?
I'd probably lean Javon Small, just because he's really carried them. Curtis Jones would be in that mix. I think Hunter's maybe rising to that level lately. He's had a pretty good couple games. I don't know that he's been that for me all season, but I think Small or Curtis Jones would probably be the favorites in my eyes. And the other one that's kind of a wild card maybe to be Juwan Roberts. I mean, he's been pretty dang good for Houston, and we'll see how he finishes. But man, he's a big reason why they won that game in Lawrence.
So when you get asked that question of a conference player of the year, do you go best player on best team, or is your philosophy just the best guy? Because West Virginia is 4-5 in the conference right now, but that's better than a lot of people thought they would be. And certainly I think better than people thought they would end up if they weren't going to have Tucker DeVries for an extended period. And that's been largely due to Javon Small's play.
Yeah. I think I usually lean towards a team that's near the top of the standings, but the fact that team is so undermanned, I think talent-wise, compared to like the other Big 12 contenders, and they've been able to win, beat Iowa State, beat Kansas. They've played a really tough Big 12 schedule too. I think second half of the year, their schedule isn't nearly as hard as. So let's say they go 11-9, 12-8 or something. He continues. Like I had him. We picked All-American teams. I think the story came out this week, but I picked it like 2 weeks ago, midway point, and he was the one Big 12 guy I had on the first team, All-American. So I think he's been terrific, and like I said, like while they are only 4-5, some of that has been they played a tough schedule. Now they should have probably beat K-State. That's a knock on his resume, but they do. If you look at their schedule, it's a little easier second half of the year.
CJ Moore writes about college basketball for The Athletic. He's the best college basketball feature writer in America. You can follow him across social media at CJ Moore Hoop. You can catch him on Thursdays on the Plain Place Wine Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk, the Big 12 basketball breakdown. CJ, enjoy the hoop this weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care.
That is CJ Moore. We'll take a time out, come back, wrap up this 4 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. Wrapping up this second of 3 hours today on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis with you here this afternoon. Coming up tonight here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, K-State women's basketball. 7 o'clock pregame, 7:30 tip from Bramlage Coliseum. The Cats taking on Iowa State. Big one in the Big 12 race. K-State try to bounce back after suffering their first Big 12 loss of the season last Saturday against Colorado. So it's a big one at Bramlage, and it is on Big ESPN tonight as well. So you can catch it on national TV. But if you want to catch the radio call with Chili Dog, Matt Walters, 7 o'clock pregame, 7:30 tip-off from Bramlage tonight, K-State and Iowa State. One more hour of the program left. We will talk to Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs, get his thoughts on the Chiefs' AFC Championship game victory and looking back at that win over the Bills. We'll also talk about some big decisions looming for the Chiefs. Bill Barnwell of ESPN.com wrote today about the decisions that face the Chiefs this offseason and which Chiefs might be playing their final games in the Chiefs uniform in New Orleans 2 Sundays from now. We've also got a jam-packed headlines segment coming up as well. We'll get to as many of those as we can before Mitch joins us. So it's a big final hour of the show. We appreciate you spending part of your Thursday afternoon with us. We hope you'll stay with us following this break and a break for the news for more 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Third and final hour of 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday afternoon. A gray and dreary day in the capital city. Going to have some rain. I've already had some rain. Due for some more rain later on this evening. We hope you're staying dry. We hope you're having a good time rocking with us here on the Sports Voice of Kansas. 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com. And, of course, on our video stream, watch us on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk. Check us out also on Facebook on our page, WIBW News. I am Dan Lucero. Spencer Dupuis is across the glass. We are so grateful to be with you and appreciate you hanging out with us on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski is at Lee Arena getting set for the start of a night of Washburn basketball as the Ichabods take on the Tigers of Fort Hays State in MIAA play. Coverage starting in about 10 minutes, a little less than 10 minutes, in fact, over on our sister station, your exclusive home of the Ichabods, Country 106.9. The women's game tips off at 5:30. The men's game to follow, the number one team in the country looking to make it 20 consecutive wins to start their season. That would be a program record in Ichabod men's basketball history. So something on the line for the number one team in the country tonight. They look to extend their unbeaten run to start this season, and Brendan will have the call. Later on tonight, here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, we have Kansas State women's basketball as the 11th-ranked Wildcats face Iowa State at Bramlage Coliseum. Pre-game coverage will start at 7 o'clock with the tip-off at 7:30. Still to come this hour on 580 Sports Talk, Mitch Holthus is going to join us in about 20 minutes. We will get Mitch's perspective on another AFC championship victory for the Kansas City Chiefs after they defeated the Bills 32-29 on Sunday, and some early thoughts on the Super Bowl matchup between the Chiefs and the Eagles as Mitch and the entire Chiefs traveling party gets set to take off for New Orleans. They leave Sunday. The team leaves Sunday. I'm not sure when Mitch leaves. We'll have to ask him. Maybe he'll tell us. But I think the team leaves on Sunday. I'm not 100% on that, but I do not believe they were at One Arrowhead Drive today practicing, and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes talked to the media. An interesting reveal today that they ran 65 toss power trap in the AFC Championship game. And it didn't work. Pacheco was a yard short of the end zone. Mahomes scored on the next play. But yeah, that when they lined up in the tee and they handed it to Pacheco, that was a 65 toss power trap as originally conceived by Hank Stram and run to great fame back in Super Bowl IV. They ran the 65 toss power trap and they didn't score a touchdown. And all I can say to Isaiah Pacheco, now that I know that, is, Isaiah, how dare you? Right side of the offensive line. Yeah. How dare you? How dare you not end that play in the end zone?
Speaking of the pressers today, Justin Reed and Trent McDuffie, I believe, spoke as well. And they actually did rock, paper, scissors for who to go first in the media room.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah,
it's not a team that's bothered one bit by the Super Bowl and media
Justin
spotlight.
Reed won, by the way.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Did he choose to go first? Or
yeah, he went first.
Perfect. Yeah, you want to get done and get out of there. So no, totally understand that. Anyway, Mitch is going to join us here in a little bit. We'll also talk about which Chiefs might be playing their final games as Chiefs. Not a fun thing to think about necessarily, but Bill Barnwell wrote an article at ESPN.com about all 14 playoff teams and the decisions that they will have to make financially in terms of their rosters following the conclusion of the season. And the Chiefs have some big decisions to make about some prominent members of the team. So we'll discuss that a little bit later on as well. But we do have lots of sports talk headlines to get to today. Let's go ahead and start with the local headlines. And we'll start on the diamond. A story that broke just as we were getting off the air yesterday, and more details came out, and it's been confirmed by the team. The Kansas City Royals have added to their bullpen, signing right-handed reliever Carlos Estevez to a 2-year contract with a club option for 2027. It's a $22.2 million guarantee. Estevez will be paid $10.1 million a year for the next 2 seasons, and then the team can buy out his option at $2 million, or they can pay him $13 million to pitch for them in 2027, turn it into a 3-year, $33.2 million contract. Estevez was an all-star 2 years ago and had the best year of his career last season, split between the Angels and the Phillies, who acquired him at the trade deadline. Over the last 2 seasons, he's thrown 117 and a third innings and posted a 3.22 ERA, striking out 20% of the batters he has faced while walking under 9% and saving 55 games. Crucially, is now the Royals have another arm in their bullpen with closing experience. Lucas Erceg had never been a closer before the Royals installed him in that role to great effect down the stretch after acquiring him at the deadline from Oakland last year. But now in Erceg and Estevez, the Royals have 2 capital P proven, capital C closers. And you like having guys like that at the back of your bullpen because it allows you to be flexible with how you attack late game situations and still feel comfortable about who you might have lined up in the 9th inning. So now the Royals bullpen looks like Erceg, Estevez, Hunter Harvey, who was acquired at the deadline, prior to the deadline from Washington and had some middling results, but was dealing with a back issue that ended up costing him the rest of the season. And John Schreiber. Those are your 4 right-handed relievers, your top 4 guys. James MacArthur could still be in the mix as well. Then from the left side, you've got Angel Zerpa, Sam Long, Daniel Lynch, Chris Bubich. That's really good balance in the bullpen. And you've got enough depth in the late innings that you can maybe take a guy you're using in the late innings last season, Bubich, and convert him back to being a starter. And there's been a lot of smoke around the idea that the Royals might do that as well. I was a little surprised the Royals went to the free agent market to add a reliever, but then you look at the list of names that the Royals have lined up for the late innings next year, and it starts to make a little more sense that they could go out and get a guy who has closing experience, who's been really good the last 2 years, who throws hard, which is just like the rest of the guys in the back of that bullpen, and add to a strength. Instead of strengthening what I still believe to be a little bit of a weakness, their lineup, they have decided to further strengthen a strength. And this bullpen going into 2025 feels about as deep as any Royals bullpen has since the HDH heyday.
Did you see a Locked On Royals podcast host Jack Johnson, what he posted on Twitter earlier today?
No, I did not.
I guess you
I
don't
did not
use that place anymore.
Tell me about it. Tell me what he said.
The Royals now have 5 relievers in the 84th percentile or higher in fastball velo projected on the opening day roster. Zerpa, Hernandez, Harvey. I can't say this guy's last name. Estevez. I want to say Estevez.
Yes,
I see the E.
On the second E, Estevez.
Estevez and Erceg collectively average 97.5 miles per hour. The 2024 opening day roster, that had 1 reliever above the 80th percentile in velo, and that was Angel Zerpa.
So I do think there's something to the idea of just let's bring guys out of the bullpen who throw down the sawdust and bring it at 98, 99 over and over again. Just try to overwhelm you in the late innings behind what projects to be a solid starting pitching rotation. And we got to win games 3-2. Let's win a bunch of games 3-2. Like, I'm good with that. That's real. That's real hoops, if you ask me. Another fun fact about Carlos Estevez, he's huge. He's 6'6", 277, according to his baseball reference page. Yeah, he's built like a offensive lineman.
Yeah.
He's huge.
Apparently the Royals checked in on him last year at the trade deadline.
And that doesn't surprise me. They were in some talks with the Angels. Remember, we brought up Taylor Ward like every other day on the show. Like, Royals are going to add a bat. Maybe it'll be Taylor Ward. And the Angels were obviously in everything must go mode. And they moved a guy who had emerged as their all-star closer in 2023. Spent the first 6 years of his career with the Rockies. So I am very familiar with Carlos Estevez's game. It turns out that leaving Colorado has done wonders for his secondary pitch, his slider, and has allowed him to enjoy more success after leaving Colorado. Imagine that. Pitcher leaves Coors Field and gets better. Who would have ever thought that such a thing would be possible? He will spend at least the next 2 seasons, possibly the next 3, as a Royal. Carlos Estevez, the newest Royal. The other fun fact, of course, in case you missed Brendan and I talking about this earlier, is that Carlos Estevez is not to be confused with Carlos Estevez, which is the birth name of actor Charlie Sheen, and why Carlos Estevez's nickname, in a nod to one of Charlie Sheen's most famous movie characters from the film Major League, is Wild Thing. It's not an insult. It was an insult when they called Mitch Williams Wild Thing because he was all over the place. It was an insult when they called Rick Vaughn Wild Thing in Major League until it became a cool thing. It's not an insult when they call the Estevez Wild Thing. It's just a nod to the coincidence of his name. Anyway, he's the newest Royal. Next headline, Spencer.
Yes, the Chiefs were back on the practice field today, and they're actually practicing today. Yesterday, they didn't practice. They just put out a practice report. 2 limited players, one actually on the active roster, the other has been designated to return. Sky Moore has been designated to return for his practice window has been opened from the IR from his abdomen, in air quotes, injury that he had earlier in the season. Practice body to get you ready for the Super Bowl. That's all this is, right?
Yeah. He's not gonna suit up. No. He did catch the go-ahead touchdown against the Eagles in the last Super Bowl. That was the thing. That was his first NFL touchdown at that. No, I would doubt. I'm more interested by Juwan Taylor being listed as limited.
Yes.
Again, it's an estimation today, but
well, no, they practiced today. They were on the field.
Why does it say the below report is an estimation on Chiefs.com?
I'm on Chiefs.com. I guess because they never updated it.
Nah, it could be. Okay.
I saw video from Matt Derrick he was posting from their.
No, I don't. Yeah. I don't doubt you. I'm just wondering why they would say that they would. It would be an estimation. But
they still have the Eagles guy as a connect injury.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I guess. Typos all over. No, I suppose it could be because they don't actually have a game on Sunday, so the designations aren't as important. But Juwan Taylor would have been a full participant Wednesday. He was actually factually limited today, so that will I think bear watching a little bit.
But who else popped on the practice report yesterday? It was Brian Cook and somebody else with quad injuries.
Brian Cook with a quad, and then who was it? Was it Kareem Hunt?
I think it was Hunt. Yeah, Hunt's no longer on the report.
That's right. So. Yeah, conspicuous perhaps by his absence.
But Mahomes, Watson still getting treatment for their ankle injuries. They were full participants. For the Eagles, rest days for Saquon and AJ Brown. And then did not participate for Landon Dickerson, Kenneth Gainwell with his concussion and knee injury, Dallas Goedert with a wrist and ankle injury, Cam Jurgens with the back, Moro Ojonomo with the shoulder injury didn't participate. Eli Ricks was sick. Devontae Smith didn't practice with a hamstring. Nolan Smith is sick, didn't practice. Britton Covey is limited. He's they designated him to return from the IR. Brandon Graham limited with an elbow.
That one's interesting. Yeah. Graham's practice window opened today, and there's a chance that I think he's 36.
Yeah.
Brandon Graham was in college when I was in college. I think I graduated ahead of Brandon Graham, but Brandon Graham was in college when I was in college.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Let me double check Brandon Graham's age. He debuted in 2010. So nope, that's wrong. Brandon. I clicked on Brandon Mebane instead. Pro Football Reference.
Brandon Graham is 36 years old.
36 years old. So no, still not older than me.
He'll be 37 April 3rd.
Hasn't played since the 24th of November, but would certainly add a rotational pass rush body for the Eagles for the game.
Yep. And that's pretty much it. Full participants for Brett Toth and CJ Uzama both participated fully in their practice today.
There are a ton of other headlines today that some of them we're just not going to be able to get to, but this one is going to be a big story that is developing out of Baltimore, where veteran Ravens kicker Justin Tucker is accused of inappropriate sexual behavior by 6 massage therapists in the Baltimore area, per an investigation by the Baltimore Banner. The allegations reportedly occurred between 2012 and 2016, which were Tucker's first 5 seasons in the NFL. And the conduct alleged to have been committed by Tucker caused some therapists to refuse to work with him again and resulted in 2 spas banning him from returning. Tucker has released a statement. It's never real good when you have to release a 6-paragraph statement.
Yeah.
I think, if you're in PR, maybe a 6-paragraph statement does not look real good. But in his lengthy statement, Tucker referred to the allegations as being, quote, unequivocally false, and says that the article, quote, takes innocuous or ambiguous interactions and skews them so out of proportion that they are no longer recognizable. The Ravens have also released a statement saying, quote, we take any allegations of this nature seriously and will continue to monitor the situation. The league spokesperson, Brian McCarthy, says we first became aware of the allegations from the reporter investigating this story as they were not previously shared with the NFL. We take any allegations seriously and we'll look into the matter. We will skip the more lurid details of the allegations against Tucker, who would also say in his social media post, I support a process that allows claims to be properly investigated, but for the sake of myself and my family, I cannot allow these false claims to go unchallenged. These allegations are false and incredibly hurtful to both me and, most importantly, my family. It does kind of reframe Tucker having an off year a little bit. I hate to make this about sports because obviously these allegations are removed from what goes on.
But they're also from 2012 to 2016.
They are. And that's a long time ago. But at the same time, I do wonder how long Tucker's been aware that, like, hey, somebody's working on a story about you.
Yeah.
Like somebody is digging up some stories and some allegations against you. I wonder how long he's known about that. I wonder if that maybe impacted his performance in 2024, which was well below the career standard of the most accurate kicker in NFL history.
We were just talking about him yesterday.
Anyway, also, that poor performance makes it really easy for the Ravens to wash their hands of Justin Tucker, if any of this is even remotely true.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you have something more pleasant we can talk about to wrap up headlines?
Yes. Can I just do 3 quick hitters?
Yes.
40-year-old Max Scherzer and the Toronto Blue Jays are in agreement on a 1-year, $15.5 million deal.
The Jays finally found somebody to take their money.
Yeah.
9 starts last year for Max with the Rangers, 2-4 with a 3.95 ERA.
He'll be 41 in July. Also, Patrick Graham will remain the DC for the Raiders, and Steve Wilkes will be Aaron Glenn's DC with the Jets.
Couple of coaching vacancy hires. That's Aaron Glenn's new DC with the Jets. And Patrick Graham's going to stay on there in Las Vegas. I thought Pete Carroll might bring in his own guy, but he's going to keep Patrick Graham aboard. That'll do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We're going to talk to Mitch Holthus after this timeout. But first, a word from my friends at Great Life. There are 8 Great Life workout facilities in the greater Topeka area. That means if you live in the greater Topeka area, there is a Great Life facility near you with all of the amenities and all of the training apparatuses and all of the resources you could possibly need to meet your fitness goals by becoming a member. And if you are a current member at Great Life and you encourage a friend to also become a member, you and your friend can get up to 32% off your membership. That's happening right now. Go to greatlifetopeka.com for more details. Become a member today. You won't regret it. I know I don't, because I am a member. We'll take a timeout. Mitch Holthus next on 580 Sports Talk. 528 on 580 Sports Talk. We expect to be joined momentarily by Mitch Holthus, voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. Joins us Thursdays throughout the NFL season on 580 Sports Talk, courtesy of Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union, where you can contact Crystal Rippey, Kirsten McCall, or Kristen Ambergy about the credit union advantage in getting your first or next home loan. And Mitch Holthus does join us indeed here on 580 Sports Talk. And Mitch, the Chiefs did it again. They're going back to the Super Bowl 5 times in 6 years. And you used the line, I believe, after the win over the 49ers in last year's Super Bowl about the Chiefs Kingdom history class. And they keep adding to their history class. And getting back to the Super Bowl after winning 2 in a row, being something nobody had ever done before, is impressive. Going to 5 Super Bowls in 6 years, which had never been done before, is impressive. And I think the era in which they're doing it, in a salary cap era, in an era where everything in this league is designed to pull you back to the middle, that the Chiefs just keep rising above every single year, and now have done this 5 times in 6 years and 3 years in a row, made it over that last hurdle. That's history 301. That's AP level stuff from this Chiefs team.
And your graduate studies in this area, to keep with your analogy, would be this team. The fact that they've already done, well, you give 2 examples. They've done something that's never been done. But if they win this game a week from Sunday, they will be set apart from any other National Football League team of all time. They will go into the realm, in my opinion, of the 72 Dolphins. Because I don't think if the Chiefs pull it off, it'll happen again. And I think because of what you alluded to, is that the league wants to pull you to the middle, or worse, then it will be very difficult with an 18th regular season game looming. I think every team will play an international game. And the fact that you're playing on every night of the week. This Chiefs team played every day of the week, but Tuesday, it's going to get increasingly hard for a repeat Super Bowl champion, much less to get 3 in a row. So what we're living here is history. Already living history with the Sunday night victory, but next Sunday could take it even more so. It's like I said at the end of the broadcast, and people have heard the call, but the Chiefs have gone past Pluto. The rocket ship is now gone out of our solar system and into uncharted area.
Every one of these AFC championship game wins, and we were talking about this earlier in the week on the show, they all have defining moments or indelible images that are the first thing that comes to mind when you think of that AFC championship game. What do you think the indelible image of this game will be? The thing that will mark the 2024 AFC title win over the Bills as the first thing that we'll think about when we think about that accomplishment?
Well, unfortunately, it'll be the 4th and less than a yard stop. And we forget that the Chiefs stopped the tush push on a 2-point conversion. But the image, I think, would be, hopefully, was how clutch the Chiefs were again, and basically in all 3 phases. The Chiefs story is so comprehensive, and you ask a good question, but it's going to be really difficult to pull it down to one snap in that game. There's so many storylines. To have Kareem Hunt get the touchdown to open the game, for him to get a 7th career postseason touchdown, and the fact of the defense getting the 4th down stop. It could be the 4th down and 5. I hope it would be that, not just the fact that the controversial 4th and less than a yard, because the Bills got the ball back. They had the ball back and a chance to win or tie and didn't get it done. So the 4th and 5 blitz, from a Chiefs perspective, that may be the play when they got the Bills off the field and the incomplete pass.
Do you have a favorite of the 5 AFC title games? I mean, they're all great games, memorable games for different reasons, and I think there's a different reason that any Chiefs fan could say this is the one that sticks out for me more than any of the 5. But is there a one of the 5 that you think tells a story that maybe resonates the most? Or I'm not going to ask you to rank them 1 through 5, like asking a parent to rank their children, but do you have one that maybe stands out above the rest now that there's a literal fistful of Lamar Hunt Trophy wins with this team?
The two are tied. There would be two, but you're right. I mean, this is like saying which child you like the best. But the two tied, and for the reasons are historic. One for the Chiefs, and one's kind of one is kind of Chiefs and some NFL, but this one was NFL history. But the winning in 19, that felt like the Chiefs won 2 Super Bowls that year because we finally won the Lamar Hunt Trophy. And I remember just the feeling of watching that podium getting built on the field and thinking after, because I believe it was 84 when the AFC Championship trophy was named after Lamar Hunt, of seeing that over a span of 30 plus years, 40 plus years, go to other teams that we were going to get it. That year felt like winning the Super Bowl twice. This year will feel like winning the Super Bowl twice if we win the Super Bowl because of the NFL historic mark that was made in being the first ever team to get to back to back to back. Again, that sets this team completely apart from all others if they pull this off. And they've even got one foot in the bucket with what they did last Sunday. So that would be tied for 2 because of the historical significance.
We're joined by Mitch Holthus here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. And Mitch, we talked about this on the show yesterday, but I was doing a little digging and some thinking. The Chiefs and Brett Veach did pretty well with kind of acquisitions they had to make during the season in order to continue to be a good football team. Kareem Hunt, he's taken the load even after Pacheco's come back. DeAndre Hopkins, he's come up big in big situations. He had that 2 touchdown game versus the Bucks. Juju Smith-Schuster signed him at the end of training camp. He had some big games as well. Samaje Perine coming up big in the AFC title game and being a guy that can pass block there as a running back. And then kickers Spencer Schrader and Matthew Wright, when they had to come on, they had to be added to the roster because of Butker, his injury. How do you quantify just mid-season or acquisitions after the initial 53 coming up big in so many spots?
Brett Veach, and I got you multiple answers here. Brett Veach's best draft was 2017 because he got Mahomes, and that was really Doris was in there with him. But then the 2022 draft class will go down maybe as the finest moment for Brett Veach. But this group, in signing the guys you mentioned, and I'm going to put Samaje Perine tied at the top of the list with Kareem Hunt. Actually, I'll tie them all. D-Hop's up there too. There's a 3-way tie for first. But you heard me say in the play-by-play, I went nuts when they got the first down because I said I love Samaje Perine.
Yeah.
His direct and indirect effect on this team has been way underrated. Not just the block on Derwin James where he jacked his jaw. Remember, he's on his back against Pittsburgh, I believe, in a huge 3rd down conversion. He's on his back, and Pat throws it to him where he has to jump up and catch the ball in like 1 second. And I would almost tell you the Kincaid play the other day, I bet Samaje catches that ball. And we've seen Samaje run and catch. I remember setting with Matt McMullen before we got Perine thinking, who's going to be the 3rd down back? Because we'd watched all of training camp and like, man, I don't know, Carson Steele, this is a big role in this offense. And then at the kickoff luncheon, I was backstage and I got a text from Beach that we're going to get Samaje Perine. Like Denver has just cut Samaje Perine and we're going to claim him. I'm like, what? And I had water. I poured water on my head. I go, we're going to win. And then you get Kareem Hunt, which is a Ted Lasso story. And then you get a D-Hop. And I said it every week. Prior to D-Hop, Pat was 6 touchdowns over 8 interceptions. And since then, 21 touchdowns to 3 picks. So all of those guys. And then Juju, he does the dirty work. He's become the Jason Avant blocker guy. He's like the penalty killer in hockey. And then, it's the penalty killer gets a breakaway goal like he did the other day with 2 catches for 60 yards. All of those guys. We wouldn't be in this game, boys, coming up without the names you just mentioned. So this was Brett Veach's best free agent year, but his 2 best drafts were, helping out with 17 and for sure in 22.
Mitch Holthus is our guest here on 580 Sports Talk, courtesy of Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union, as we continue on with the voice of the Chiefs. setting aside the historical context, which is obviously such a big part of Super Bowl 59 from the Chiefs' perspective, and strictly in the football context of the champions of the AFC, the Chiefs, playing the champions of the NFC, the Eagles, just as it was 2 years ago for Super Bowl 57 in Phoenix. How does this matchup of the Chiefs and the Eagles feel different than the matchup 2 years ago? And maybe in any way, how does it feel the same as the matchup last 2 years ago did?
Well, there's the obvious. The Eagles, with Barkley having, I think it's crazy, separates regular season from postseason until they don't. And they're doing this less and less separation. Barkley's going to have the greatest running back year ever in NFL history, and he gets explosive runs. People say you got to throw to win in the NFL. Well, not when you get 70-yard runs. I mean, one of your nuggets of the night is the fact that Saquon Barkley's already got an NFL record of 7 runs of 60 yards or more, and no one else has 5 all time. So there's that they're explosive in the run game. They are better defensively, in my opinion, than the Super Bowl 57 team because of what they've done in the draft class. First of all, they got like every Georgia Bulldog they could find, right, with Nolan Smith and Carter. But they've done a really good job in the secondary with Cooper DeJean and then Mitchell. So Howie Roseman is drafted astutely. Where they're the same is they still have to win a certain way. This is not a team that's going to line up 3 wide and put you on your heels like a Cincinnati Bengals team could do in the prime. Now, the one guy that is not getting enough mention, we'll talk more about this next week, is Dallas Goedert. Goddard's a stud. And he, I think, becomes a key person for the Eagles if they're going to win this game. Now, what is it the same for the Chiefs? We have 15 starters back from that game 2 years ago. They have 12. So it tells you how much the league turns over and over. But this Chiefs team, to me, is even more comprehensive. It's better up front. There's more of a defensive rotation with a guy like Charles Omenihu. That's up there. You've got a guy like Felix Anudike-Uzomah as part of that defensive rotation. And then on the offensive side, much of the names we've mentioned. I think this Chiefs team is stronger when you've got D-Hop, P. Ryan, Kareem Hunt. You've got more of a power run game than you had in Super Bowl 57, and you still got Pacheco if he can pop a big run, no pun intended. So there's where I think there are similarities and differences. But I think the Chiefs are better than the Super Bowl 57 team, and I think the Eagles are better than the Super Bowl 57 team comprehensively.
All right. Lastly, Mitch, we don't want to empty the chamber on Nuggets, certainly with the game still a week and change out. But I know you've already started doing some digging and some research into these Eagles and this matchup. And if you got some Nuggets of the night to leave us on tonight, we absolutely would love to whet our appetites for Super Bowl 59.
Well, teams that are trailing by 10 points or more in the Super Bowl are 2-26. And one of the two is Super Bowl 57, as we know. And Pat's limping off the field. Is he going to play? Then we get the long halftime, and then Pat plays, and he's just in writhing in pain. We go win. All right, the other one is the Falcons collapse against the Patriots. But another one, I think, is Pat's 288 passes without an interception. It's the longest streak by any quarterback ever entering the Super Bowl. And the fact that he hasn't turned it over since week 11 against the Bills is pretty crazy and stupid when you think about it. And honestly, we'll get into it more next week, but the Eagles, they kind of live off the giveaway takeaway. If you do a deep dive, you're kind of playing. This is where I think the Chiefs have a little bit of an advantage. The Chiefs are playing the Philadelphia Bills or maybe the Buffalo Eagles, because there's a lot more similarities between those two teams than one might think. And so that's what you have going into next week.
Mitch, when do you head out to New Orleans?
Sunday with the team. I'm with the team. We'll go out early Sunday afternoon. We'll arrive. It's not a long flight at all. So we'll be mid-afternoon, early afternoon on Sunday in the Crescent City.
Are you pro beignet? Where do you come down on the beignet?
Oh, yeah. No, beignets are outstanding. That's the best thing New Orleans will give you.
Well,
that in the World War II Museum. But other than that, I don't know. jambalaya, like real jambalaya, if you can find a really good place to get one. I love jambalaya. So I love Cajun food, but the beignets are big time.
Yeah, have a couple of extra ones for us in your week down in New Orleans, and we will talk to you next Thursday and preview Super Bowl 59. Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs. Thanks for the time, Mitch.
Thanks, boys.
That is Mitch Holthus, and now I'm hungry. We're going to step aside for another time out here on 580 Sports Talk. Come back and talk some more Chiefs as we round down the show on this Thursday afternoon. .547 on 580 Sports Talk. Rounding the corner and wrapping up this program. Got a final word coming up in a little bit. Our thanks again to Mitch Holthus for joining us. He's going to eat good in New Orleans. I tell you that right now. Cajun food.
Oh, yeah, he will.
I've never been to New Orleans, but I do enjoy Cajun food. I've been to Memphis a few times, and they've got a lot of Cajun food, Cajun inspired restaurants out there in Memphis, and man, it's so good. So good. If anybody got a line on like jambalaya in the capital city of Kansas, let me know where I can find some. I'm not joking. I need a garbage can lid full of jambalaya right this second.
Not a jambalaya fan. Not really. I don't know.
Hey, look, not everything's for everybody. Exactly. That's fine. But that more for me. I want to go to a crawfish boil. I'm hungry. Okay, let's get back into what we were going to talk about. Bill Barnwell, ESPN.com. We cite his work a lot on the show because he's really good at his job. And he wrote today about the 14 NFL playoff teams and the decisions that face them when the season is done. When the confetti is done falling at the Superdome and the offseason begins, where do these teams have to make their toughest decisions? The Chiefs project to go into the offseason with $16.3 million in cap space. That's 23rd most in the league. They can restructure Patrick Mahomes' contract and likely will, and that will free up close to $40 million. And that will leave them a lot of flexibility. But they've got some tough decisions to make. And the biggest decision they have to make is the guy who might actually be the best free agent in the class, and that's Trey Smith. Barnwell writes, the 2021 sixth-round pick is a great run blocker who made his first Pro Bowl this season, but the Chiefs have a tough decision to make about how much they want to invest in positions that they might not classify as essential. Here's the thing. Given how much money they paid Joe Thuney, he's entering the final year of a 5-year, $80 million contract. Given the fact that they gave Creed Humphrey a market-setting extension at center, wouldn't that suggest that they do classify interior offensive line as essential?
I would say so, yes.
So I think I'm not going to say there's no chance that a Trey Smith deal gets done. I'm not going to say no chance. I do think that the Chiefs will be outbid. I think that there will be higher bidders.
I mean, there's a lot more people with more cap space.
Yes.
And a lot more people that want to get their offensive line in better shape. My team also, for some reason, likes to go after former Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes, they do. They've got two of them on their offensive line that started the NFC Championship game, Nick Allegretti and Andrew Wiley. Yes. The intel from ESPN, Jeremy Fowler, suggests that the Bears will be very interested in Trey Smith. And they've obviously got to redo their whole offensive line and protect Caleb Williams a lot better. That would certainly make a good deal of sense. Barnwell also writes that money earmarked for Smith could instead go to Nick Bolton, whose range as a tackler has helped the Chiefs' run defense take a step forward. I'm reading from the article. Bolton will be one of the youngest free agents on the market, which will attract analytically inclined teams that prioritize youth when they pursue veterans. He's also likely to come in on a smaller deal than Smith, given the spike at the top of the guard market a year ago, which could make him, meaning Bolton, a more palatable re-signing option. I think there is a very high chance Nick Bolton returns to the Chiefs. I've been consistent in saying this since last offseason, that I think that Steve Spagnuolo views Nick Bolton as a very important player and that the Chiefs view him as a leader and as a really, really vital piece of that defense. You don't just replace the green dot, right? Like you don't go import a guy and say, hey, you're the green dot now. Yeah. Like maybe Drew Tranquil could slide into that spot if they really feel like they can afford to let Bolton go. But I expect Bolton to return to the Chiefs. Justin Reed's also on the final year of his contract. The suggestion from Bill Barnwell is that he would be productive on a third contract because he doesn't turn 28 until a couple of weeks from now. I'd like to see them keep Justin Reed. I think he can be productive for a few more years. The safety market kind of collapsed last year, so I don't think you're going to have to pay a premium to keep him around. I'd like to see him back.
I would too. The only thing that I could see is who's right behind him and who's played a bunch this year when he's been off the field. Jaden Hicks. And I think the front office and Andy Reid and Spags really like Jaden Hicks.
And that's the interesting thing when it comes to Bolton and Reid is because there are guys who could theoretically fill that role who are on the roster right now. Tranquil, obviously a different situation than Hicks because he's a veteran guy. Yeah. He's got 2 more years. He signed a 3-year deal before this season. Hicks, obviously a rookie, got 3 more years. That definitely could impact whether or not the Chiefs keep those guys around. And
especially if you want to look, they have to make tough decisions.
They do.
So if you want to funnel money that might have gone to Justin Reed, but maybe you're going to kind of try and keep Trey Smith, like you have Jaden Hicks there.
The other suggestion that Bill Barnwell makes real quick, he suggests that another 1-year deal for Hollywood Brown would make sense. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Of all the free agent wide receivers on the roster, Hopkins, Smith-Schuster, Watson, and Brown, I would love to see if Brown would come back for a prove-it deal after missing most of this season. I think that would make a ton of sense. We'll take a timeout, come back for the final word next.
Many of them are overpaying by thousands of dollars a year. These GLP-1 medications for diabetes, weight loss, and more may not always be covered by your insurance, but GoodRx can help. GoodRx helps you save every month on prescriptions at over 70,000 pharmacies nationwide. Best of all, it's free to use. Check GoodRx to save on GLP-1s. Just go to GoodRx.com/GLP. That's GoodRx.com/GLP. GoodRx is not insurance, but can be used instead of insurance, including Medicare and other federal and state-funded programs.
Easy Cater. It's all the food for your workplace, all in one place. With over 100,000 restaurants nationwide on one platform. Whether you need food for company meetings or events, daily employee lunches, or your next lunch and learn, Easy Cater makes food for work. And it doesn't stop at lunch. With Easy Cater, you've got great breakfast options, snacks, treats, and more. Whenever and wherever work happens, Easy Cater is here to make the food happen. Order now at easycater.com.
Hey, I got you something. What's this? Just a little Valentine's gift from JTV. Do you need jewelry television? I love their jewelry. They have...
New customers get $25 off their first purchase of $75 or more. Visit jtv.com/romance.
Their artisan collections? Gorgeous. Are you going to open your gift? Oh, yeah. It's the pearl bracelet.
New customers receive $25 off their first purchase of $75 or more. Visit jtv.com/romance.
Mornings can start. Wake up, brush teeth, go to work. But with breakfast from Wendy's, it's like wake up, brush teeth, baconing with a breakfast baconator. Roll with the sausage breakfast burrito. Buddy it up with a honey buddy. Or get seasoned with seasoned potatoes. And then go to work. So when you're ready for a fresh wake-up call, gotta be Wendy's.
WIBW, Topeka.
One more. In conclusion,
we got time enough for a quick final word. Spencer Dupuy, give it to me.
Yeah, prayers up to what happened last night at just over before DCA in the Potomac River for a flight from Wichita crashing with a helicopter. People that live fairly close to where I grew up unfortunately passed away.
That's awful to hear, and I know that certainly folks in the Wichita community are affected by that. Terrible story, and obviously we don't have all of the details and all of the names, but yes, I want to second that as well, that thinking about the folks in Wichita today, thinking about the folks in D.C. today, and everybody affected by that terrible tragedy, which is essentially now been confirmed as the most the most costly in terms of lives lost air disaster in the United States since 2002. Yes, prayers up for that. That's a good place to keep the final word today. Washburn basketball going on right now over on Country 106.9. We're back for 2 hours tomorrow before Capital City Classic coverage on the 580 Preps Game of the Week. So we hope you'll join us. Until then, for Brendan and Spencer, I'm Dan. This was 580 Sports Talk. Good night.